All right, everybody. So last week we went through a process of analyzing two texts. You had some comprehension questions to answer, and we got down the first part of kind of giving an explanation for how two texts can share the same theme, and how to compile up your text evidence and and how to explain how those pieces of text evidence connects to the theme. Okay, that's what we did last week. This week is kind of the second part of that, which is basically just following through with the writing process. So you have your graphic organizer for your text made. So all you have to do now is just put it in a proper paragraph format. That kind of goes with making sure you know how to use, that you know how to use a graphic organizer properly. If you use a graphic organizer properly, then all you have to do is do different word choice, or use those transition phrases that was shown in the video yesterday, and things like that, to kind of help flesh it out, add some meat into it and everything like that. The graphic organizer just helps you with the bare bones of the writing. What is it going to be structured like? Now it's time to go through and start rearranging everything and fleshing it out. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get into this. So we have our graphic organizer that we left off with here. I'm using the dads, the two texts about the dads. You can work this with me if you want to. However, I will tell you this, the assignment that you're going to have to turn in is not going to be using this text. All right. This is just an example, but like I said, you can use the dad text to kind of work it through with me, just so you can kind of get that practice on the steps that you need to be taking and the steps you need to follow. But for the assignment, you are going to be using the other text. You're going to be using with the two texts for the initiation rites and coming of age Latino style. Okay. So follow along on this one. Like I said, you can use the dad text, the short story and the poem to follow along with, so you can practice. And then with the assignment, with the graded assignment, you're going to use the other two texts that we did last week. All right. So again, we have our beginning graphic organizer here that we left off with yesterday. I'm going to kind of go through and kind of fill it in a little bit. We have our position up here, the sentence starter that was given on the worksheet itself. And then if you answered number 7 on that worksheet correctly on the comprehension questions, you will have your theme, which is basically the whole sentence. The universal theme of the story and the poem is, and then your theme. Relationships between parents and children are filled with unspoken but powerful emotions. So then you need your evidence. You needed to have 3 pieces of evidence. I gave you 2, and they were from the short story. So your third piece of evidence needed to come from the poem. Okay. You could use whichever line struck your fancy. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that whenever it comes down here for you to try to explain it, you're able to explain it. All right. So the first thing I did here actually was I filled out this explanation for this second piece of evidence here, just so I could finish that off. So toward the end of the short story, we have, I put me there. That's a typo. I'll fix that later. I hold me Papa in my arms and I hold him. Okay. And then there's my citation. So the explanation I gave was, instead of speaking to him about his grief, the author comforts her father through actions. That is an explanation of, the unspoken but powerful emotions. There's no words being done. There's just actions. And obviously, if a child is holding the parent, there's gonna be some pretty strong emotions going on there. So that's something to keep in mind. Moving on, we have our text evidence from the poem. This is the one that I chose. If you did this and you chose a different line, by all means, that is okay. It is your analysis. All analysis are subjective to whoever is writing the analysis. If you did a different line from this one, as long as you're able to explain it and that the explanation is relevant, it is perfectly fine. So don't think that this is the, you know, the one and only answer that you guys have to pick. No, that is not accurate. Okay. So the line that I chose was, this is the line that for him I pen, only a dad, but he was the best of men. Now this slash here, you'll kind of remember from when you learned poetry, is when you are quoting text from a poem. This slash just basically means that the line started on a different, you know, it didn't start here. All right. It wasn't structured as a regular writing. It was, you know, short lines, typical poem structure. Okay. And then for my explanation down here, I have the speaker may not have been thankful for everything his father did, but now he realizes how much his father gave for him. And again, that kind of goes with powerful emotions, relationships between parents and children, things like that. They were unspoken when the speaker was a child. However, now that he's an adult, he's able to articulate his feelings a little bit better, but still probably not enough. All right. And then last but certainly not least, you have your link back. It says summarize here, and some of you guys are kind of thinking that means summarize the entire passage and poem or whatever. That's not what that means. That kind of just means it's basically your conclusion sentence. You're concluding your point here. Okay. So, oh, it zoomed in a little bit, a lot actually. And I've got different colors, but that's okay. It says, once you break down the text of the two writings, the reader can understand how family bonds, especially the bond between parent and child, sometimes does not need words to express. Okay, so that is basically saying, you know, based on the evidence and explanations that we have, and it's restating the whole unspoken but powerful emotions. There's no words involved. All right, it's restating it. Not the same words, and it is a little bit wordy. It'll probably be broken down whenever we transfer the writing to a rough draft, a paragraph format, and I'll show you that here in a second. But all of this stuff has to change. Some of you guys are going, whenever you go from graphic organizer to paragraph, you're just filling it in as you see here, and then, you know, you're confused about why you got it wrong. Well, that's because, again, graphic organizer is bare bones. When you put it in a paragraph format, you have to actually flesh it out. And this next slide shows you that. Now, please don't think that this is, I mean, there's not that many extra lines here, sentences for all that. There's 8 sentences here, obviously. There's 8 sentences over here. There's nothing different. It's just in paragraph format, it looks like it's longer. So this is kind of what it looks like. So how does it look kind of broken down into its parts? I went ahead over here and I highlighted what explanations go with what piece of evidence, so you can follow it through as we come through the paragraph, okay? So moving along, first thing is our position, our theme. You know, identifying what the theme is. You have your indentation here because you have to start a paragraph with an indentation. This is the equivalent of 5 spaces, okay? You could also use the tab key depending on what program you're in. You could also use the tab key to make that indentation, but I think the tab key kind of pushes it out a little bit farther. But 5 spaces is generally a good indentation for a paragraph as well. So don't think that you have to use the tab key all the time. All right. So then we go into our first piece of evidence and explanation. However, just starting off with the quotation marks just like that, that's not going to be enough. It's not going to fully connect it. It's not going to be grammatically and basically grammatically correct. You're going to have to put some kind of introductory phrase or transition phrase in there. And the one I ended up using is the author of the short story shows this by stating. Okay, saying that is, so I'm introducing a quote. I am introducing my evidence. Okay. It kind of just prepares the reader. Oh, okay, so here is our first fact. Okay, or our first evidence from the text. And then we have this. We have, I have never seen my papa cry and don't know what to do. And then I have my citation. Again, your citation, the period comes after the citation that's in parentheses. All right. Now there's a Cisneros here because I did not name the author of the short story here. You can do that either way. You could say in the short story, Cisneros says, you could do that either way, but this is typically the way that it kind of stands out a little more because the parentheses stand out. Excuse me. And then following that, we have our explanation sentence, okay? The author is describing how she was surprised and did not know what to say. It's not word for word what was over here. I changed it up a little bit. You're allowed to do that, okay? You're allowed to make it to where it is combined a little bit, okay? You don't always have to go word for word from graphic organizer to paragraph. And I think some of you guys are doing that, and that gets y'all really frustrated with writing because you write, and I've told y'all this before in previous tutorial videos or in class or anything like that. You guys are writing your entire essay in a graphic organizer, and then when you're asked, okay, so now you have to transfer it to a rough draft, you guys get so upset and discouraged thinking, well, why do I have to rewrite the same thing again? That's because you're writing too much in the graphic organizer, okay? Please stop doing that. You're only making more work for yourself and it's making you more frustrated, okay? Try to think of a better way, okay? So that's how I did that. There was 2 sentences over here. I condensed it down into one and it still has the same meaning. All right. So then we're going into our second piece of evidence and explanation. Again, we can't just start it out with a quote. A quote by itself is not going to be accurate. All right. You have to introduce your evidence. All right. So let's introduce our evidence. And I bolded out here this first one, and then the rest is in red. It says another example. That is something that you guys have used all the time. I see it all the time in your writing. It's great. So I thought I would point out that yes, it's okay, and you can still add more to it, and it's still an introduction to your evidence, okay? Another example from the story that supports the theme is at the end where she declares, all right, and then that introduces our second example from, ironically enough, the short story, okay? It's a little bit longer, not too much longer, really. It says, I hold my papa in my arms, I hold and hold and hold him. And again, here is our citation with the period after the citation, just like it is supposed to be in MLA. And then we have our explanation. It says, this shows that the author is using actions to comfort her father instead of trying to find something to say. Again, not the same exact wording I used in the graphic organizer, but it means the same thing. All right. The words seem to fit a little bit better. All right. There's more of a flow there. So I hope you guys are getting the gist on how to do this. I know that it really frustrates you guys whenever we're going from graphic organizer to rough draft, or when you have in the past and it's like rewriting the exact same thing on the graphic organizer. That's not what you really do. You can make changes. If it doesn't sound good, you're criticizing your own writing, it doesn't sound good, change something up. Go ahead and change it up. It's not going to be too bad. And then you have your editing and revising that you would do anyway. So if it sounds better the other way, you can change it back. It's okay. That's just a rough draft. That's what rough drafts are for. So there's our 2 pieces of evidence. And now we're going into our third evidence and explanation. from purple, and it is from the poem. Okay, so we have, additionally, so we're not going to the story again, we're just adding more evidence, and it's from a separate source. So on the other hand, or something like that, it wouldn't really fit because it's not contradicting anything, it's not contrasting anything, but it's adding to stuff, but it's just coming from a different source. So we have additionally, the poem also supports the theme in the last lines of the final stanza. We have our comma here because that's an introductory word. We did not have a comma here, so please make sure you're following comma rules if you know them. If you don't, look back in your notes from the beginning of the year. You should find some your comma rules there. And again, before we do anything, there is comma there before the quotation, and then we have our explanation. It says, "This is the line for him, my pen, only a dad, but he was the best of men. The speaker as a child may not have been thankful for everything his father did, but now he realizes how much his father gave for him." This one is a little bit more like this one. I just added kind of an explanation for as a child because it kind of left it, it was a little bit too vague. It was almost like the speaker may not have been thankful for everything his father did. That could have been talking for him now, as an adult, and then, maybe now he's got kids. So I kind of clarified a little bit that, when the speaker was a child, he might not have been thankful for his stuff, for anything that his dad did. Okay. So that was really the only thing I changed on that. Everything else was pretty much left alone. And once I read it again, let it sit, I may end up changing it again. So it really just depends on style and flow and how it all fits. All right. So finally, last but certainly not least, again, we have our link back, our conclusion sentence. We have to wrap it all up. So we have something here. Now this is, again, it is really, really different from what I originally put on the graphic organizer. It seemed a little bit, the graphic organizer one seemed a little bit too wordy for me. There was too much there. So I wanted to kind of slim it down, not make so many words, but I still needed to make sure that, it wrapped up all of my evidence and explanations, and it tied everything back to my topic sentence. So we leave it off and tie it up with these examples and others display to the reader how family bonds between parents and their children at times do not need words in order to show their feelings. Okay, so that kind of says, we have this piece of evidence, but then there's other stuff in there as well. But, there's too much there to go to try to do every little thing. All right, and we're only doing a paragraph. If it was a multiple paragraph paper, then we could kind of delve into a few more examples possibly. But this kind of works out for what our purpose is and what we need. All right. So that you can kind of see how that breaks it down though. Some of you guys, like I said, you were just like copying down everything as you see it here on a sheet of notebook paper in a Word document, and you were just then getting frustrated because you didn't know why you were getting it wrong. I hope that this kind of helps you see kind of how we ended up, how we ended up coming from, little bitty chunks of sentences here to a pretty well-structured paragraph over here. And it's, like I said, it looks like it's long because it's kind of blown up and I've got large text up here. But it's really only, 8 or 9 sentences. It's really not that long. There's just looks like it is, again, because we put introductory phrases and stuff like that in there. So don't be too intimidated. All right. So like I said at the beginning, your assignment now is to take the other Peel organizer that you did last week, the one with initiation rites and coming of age Latino style. And you are basically going to be doing the same thing that I just did with this text about dads and relationships between parents and children. You are going to tie your evidence and explanations together. You're going to throw in some transition phrases or transition words, and, you know, make your first paragraph out of it. The paragraph can be turned in to Schoology using a Word document, or you can use notebook paper, or you can use the Create tab that is in the Schoology submission link. I will tell you this: if you turn in what I'm showing right now, I will count it wrong, because that is not the topic for which you are going to be doing your paragraph over. Okay, so please make sure that you follow the directions and use the text from the other two text analysis that we did last week. All right. Good luck. I can't wait to see what you guys can do on this. I know y'all will do fantastically. All right. Make sure you contact your teachers if you have any further questions. Come to tutoring if you need help, and we will be more than happy to help you guys. All right. Good luck.